Got a little residual music going there. Hello, good evening. Good to see you. Happy 21st day to me. um, so today is my 21st day in a row going live. It's also my last day in a row going live. Not my last day going live because I'm actually really enjoying this. But it is my 21st day. So if you're here, if you're in the chat, say hi. Tell me where you are. Tell me what's happening today. What's good? We've got Jen in the chat saying last day. Woohoo! I've got a little bit of senioritis. The first 2 weeks of going live every day was like awesome and energizing. And on day 15, I was like, oh, I think I'm out of things to talk about. And then I got the energy back up, and Lauren says, yay, you did it. I did. And you helped me. You were on with me live one night. That was so awesome. And you're proud. Thank you. Actually, Jen Katz and I have had this conversation about being proud of our friends. And I say you're proud of people, but some people feel weird about saying they're proud of their friends because they feel like it sounds parental. It doesn't. You can just be proud of your friends. And your friends can be proud of you, and everybody can be happy for each other. And we'll just all live in like a world where everybody gets along. That's the dream. That's what I want. So for those of you who have been with me for many of the 21 days, I so appreciate you. I appreciate you if you've come once. I appreciate you if you've just commented or if you've watched afterwards. I set this challenge for myself because every time I went on video, I was feeling like shy and meek, and it didn't show like once I got on video, but I was having this experience where I was scheduling lives and dreading it. And I didn't want to be living that life where I'm scheduling something that's part of my business, that's part of my life, that's part of my community, that is like a piece that just like doesn't feel good, that feels sort of icky. And so I thought to get over that. And Jennifer Dorset is here and says, hello there. It's healthy to show happiness for one another. Absolutely. Yes, for sure. And Mary Jo, you made it. Yes. And you made it. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. So here we are 21 days in, and by like day 3, I was actually looking forward to doing this. So I knew I was doing the right thing for myself. And now I feel really comfortable on camera, being myself. I stopped wearing makeup every day. I still wear it sometimes. I just like feel like I have a choice. I don't feel like I have to like dress up for the camera. I'm wearing pants. I always wear pants just like in case I have to stand up and go somewhere. You don't want to be known as the person who went on live on LinkedIn and didn't wear any pants. And Jen says, you seem so at ease in front of the camera. I am now. I was not. I think I did seem at ease, but I like until like the camera light was on, I felt like, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about? I felt a little bit, if you're old enough to remember the Brady Bunch, which I watched in reruns my whole childhood. There was an episode where the Bradys were on a game show, and Cindy was the most excited about the game show. And then they got on the stage and she was all excited. And then the red light of the camera, the record light went on, and she went like, and she just sat there the whole time. And, and that's what I felt like every time I went on camera. It was like, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about? How am I going to drag this out and be interesting for X number of minutes? And what I realized is, and yes, Lauren, soft pants only in this household. I have gotten so ingrained in soft pants culture. And if you don't know about soft pants and hard pants, you gotta get that distinction. Hard pants are the pants we have to wear outside when we're with other people. Soft pants are sweatpants, leggings, pajama pants. You know, as long as you are pantful, you're in the clear. I have been wearing sweatpants for so long that when I put on any other kind of pant, my dog goes into the crate because she knows I'm going out. So she knows which of my outfits mean like, oh man, mama has to leave the house. Oriel says, I can literally watch you all day. Oh, thank you. That's really nice. Appreciate that. So I want to talk to you tonight about how to fix your life in 637 easy steps. And really what I want to talk to you about is coaching, which is, if you don't know, it's what I do for a living. It is my passion. Yes, Mary Jo, all situations tie to the Brady Bunch. Mary Jo and I have a shared passion for the Brady Bunch. And if you don't know it, if you didn't grow up with it, it might be worth your while to like get into it now and just like enjoy the 70s-ness of it. And the it's like there's a situation, it's like modern day Seinfeld, Friends. Like there's always a Brady Bunch episode that gets you, that understands you. But I want to talk about coaching, which is essentially what I've been talking about, topics related to coaching for the last 21 days. But I want to talk really specifically about coaching tonight because it is a misunderstood profession. It is a profession where there are a lot of people who call themselves coaches who aren't coaches. It's a profession where a lot of people think because they are good at a thing, they're going to be good at coaching. And the truth is, some of them are. Some coaches, some people who, are marketing executives or finance executives or attorneys become amazing coaches. And Linda says, you simplify complex issues with ease. Don't sweat it. Thank you, Linda. I do not sweat it anymore. I'm so comfortable up here now. And I always was comfortable in my position, like in companies I worked for, in my position as a coach. It was the getting on video and being in front of a light that's like, you're on, go perform. That felt really icky to me. Doesn't anymore. So if you're trying to get comfortable on camera, I highly recommend a 21-day challenge for yourself. So anyway, I want to talk about like what coaching is. But first I want to talk about my own coaching journey and like some of my clients and like why people decide to get a coach and all of that. This is not a sales call. I don't mass sell to people, but I also think that it's important to understand why you might benefit from having a coach and what to look for in a positive way and what to try to avoid as you're looking for what you're looking for. So the first thing I want to explain is the difference between coaching and therapy, because I have had people call me their career therapist. It's sort of in jest. I am not a therapist and I don't even play one on TV. And so separating what those two things are, for me was really powerful in helping me determine like what I wanted to work on with my own coach and what I wanted to work on with my therapist, because I did have both at one point. So a therapist is a licensed professional. They are the expert. They work with people who are not at baseline for whatever reason, whether they have had a mental health situation, whether they have a diagnosed situation or a situational situation. Saying situation a lot. And what I mean is, diagnosed anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, all kinds of different diagnosed mental health conditions, or a situational condition where you have anxiety or depression because of a thing that happened, or grief or trauma or PTSD, all of those kinds of things. A therapist is there to get you from below baseline to A-OK. And some therapists continue to work with you to get beyond A-OK, which is great. A coach starts from wherever you are and works with you to elevate. And so if you are going to work with a coach and what you want to be coached on doesn't have a baseline of okay, it's important to decide whether you should be working with a therapist first. And a good way to determine that is if you are thinking about being coached on relationships, right? And you have trauma in your past relationships. you have a divorce, or you have a death, or you have an abuse situation, and you haven't worked through that, to go to a coach to talk about dating or to talk about your relationship management, you're going to keep getting stuck in the same place. And so working with a therapist can help you get to baseline so that you can think about what you want next, other than just not to feel terrible, right? So hopefully that's helpful. If you have questions about that distinction, feel free to let me know in the chat. I'm happy to keep talking about that a little bit. In coaching, the other difference is a therapist is a licensed professional who is trained to deal with conditions and diagnoses and solutions. A coach, in some cases, has training, in some cases doesn't. I'm going to talk about that. But in coaching, we think you're the expert in your life. We think that you hold all of the keys to what can be different, to what can change in your life, and to what can be better. And we just need to ask you the right questions. So as coaches, our training, my training, is to listen for what you're talking about, listen for what you're saying, listen for patterns, listen for the things you're not saying. I personally am a person who tends to skim over stuff. So I'll, talk about, I'll be talking about my day, and I'll quickly mention something terrible that happened, and then move right on to the rest of my day. And I count on my coach to say oh, hey, can we go back to that terrible thing you just talked about and talk about that a little bit more? And so with a coach, you really get this opportunity to sit with yourself. And I do all of my coaching on Zoom. So you really are sitting with yourself, with me, or with your coach, and really taking the time and space and energy to explore who, how, and what you want to be. And so I've been coaching for 15 years or so. I started actually before I was coaching as a resume writer. Then I went into depth a little bit, teaching people how to interview. And that sort of evolved into, I have this situation at work I don't know how to handle. Can you help me with that? And I have this situation and I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, and, all of those kinds of things. And so I just started helping people internally at the companies I worked for, and externally, sort of ad hoc as a hobby. Sometimes I got paid for it, but it was really a hobby. And I did that for about 15 years before I decided I really wanted to be a full-time coach. My previous career was HR. And so I hired myself a coach first because I needed to work out my habits and my stuff in order to even figure out that I wanted to be a coach. So here's kind of a trajectory of what happens to a lot of us somewhere in the middle of our adult lives. We go to college or trade school or finish high school. We decide what job or career we want. Maybe we jump around a little bit. And we choose a couple of, thanks, Michelle. Congrats. I like that. We choose a couple of different careers or jobs. We settle somewhere. And by the time we're 20 something, we have a career. We have what we call a career. We may or may not actually like that career, but we have it. We have figured out that this is what we have become because we are grown-ups. And then we get real busy. So whether we're working crazy hours or whether we are having kids or getting married or taking care of parents or whatever it is that gets busy in our lives become full of things. And we go into autopilot. And we talked about this in one of my other lives, where I always think of, gosh, I'm really aging myself. In the 1980s, there was a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, which is now just Dunkin'. But there was a Dunkin' Donuts commercial with a mustache guy they would just show a scene of him waking up, saying, it's time to make the donuts, going to work, making the donuts, going to sleep, alarm goes off, Next day, same thing. And that's, we get into this mode where we work, kids, sleep, repeat, work, sleep, repeat, work, second job, repeat, right? So we get into these routines and we think like, oh, this is just what being an adult is like. You get to this age or this stage, and then like you wait until you retire and you can make choices again. And so I did that. I went to work. I tried 4 careers in 4 years. I was a meeting planning assistant, and then I was an accountant for a short period of time. Then I was in sales for an even shorter period of time, and then I was tapped on the shoulder in that current company to move into HR, which I did, and that stuck for 20 years. And for 15 years, I really enjoyed it. Like I loved it. I thrived on HR. I mentored other HR people. I couldn't do enough to help. I loved it. I also was a workaholic, which was not healthy. I also was a people pleaser, which is not that healthy. And I also was living with chronic illness from the age of 29 to almost 40. I'm still living with chronic illness, just to be clear about that. I'm living well right now with chronic illness. But I hit this point where I was like, this stinks, right? Like 15 years into my career, I hit this point that was just like, this is not amazing. And so I thought, well, I need another job. And the problem with just getting another job is that you're typically eventually running away from something, right? When you're climbing the career ladder, getting another job is going from coordinator to manager to director to VP, and it's more money, more responsibility. So it is exciting for a while. And that's the cycle I was in. It was really exciting. Every time I went for something new, I got something new, and not always easily, but I got something new, and it was exciting, and it was more, and I had more power and more a higher level and more money. And then I hit my ceiling, which was I was looking at other jobs and they all looked the same to me. And I got really sad about it. And I thought, like, here I am already unhealthily working 80 to 100 hours a week. If you're working 80 to 100 hours a week, a coach is awesome for helping you break that habit. So I'm already working 80 to 100 hours a week. I'm looking at other jobs, and my warped thinking, which is what happens when you're trying to justify that things are fine, that things are okay. My warped thinking was, well, that job looks the same at this other company, and I don't know the culture, so it could be worse than where I am now. And I really liked the culture where I was. So if it could be worse and it's really okay here, and it could be more hours or even the same amount of hours, at least here I've got some like built up equity that if I need to take a day off, I can take a day off. If I need a dentist appointment, I can go to the dentist. Nobody's going to question me. And I had this sort of warped sense of like, this is the only option for me. And this happens to us in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that we think like the line we're on, the path we're on is the only path that exists for us. And I hit my breaking point. Some of you have heard this, but I hit my breaking point at the beginning of the pandemic, where I was running HR. I was managing our company's move from one building to another, which was from the Studs construction project, about $1 million project. I was interim managing finance because I was replacing the finance leader. And then the pandemic started and I was HR. So they turned to me and they were like, what do we do? And all the research was coming through HR organizations and attorneys. And that was the point where I was like, I don't effing know what we're supposed to do. I don't really want to do anything. And I didn't say that out loud because that wasn't my way. I'm a graceful lady. But I in that moment, when it was the day before we decided to close the office. So I think it was like March 12th or so when the governor of our state was talking about potentially closing. And we were talking about, getting people home and connectivity and all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't want to be involved anymore. And I remember going home, and in the next week or two, I found an online group that's not active anymore. But it was a group of HR Department of One people. And I met a couple of coaches in that group who were also HR. And my brain had a light up moment where I thought I could be a coach. Now, it wasn't quite logical thinking, because A, I already was a coach. I already was doing coaching. And B, in my head, it was, I will add a coaching certification to my docket, and I will use it to get an even better job at whatever my next job is. And I didn't have time for that. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, and now we were in a pandemic. Where was I going to find the time for that? And I called someone who's now a very dear friend, who at the time was an acquaintance, who is a coach, to ask her about the logistics of getting a coaching certification. And while I was talking to her, I realized I'm kind of a mess. I'm not a mess in that I needed therapy at that time. My mental health function was okay. It wasn't amazing, but it was okay. But I was stuck in this cycle of just working all the time, saying yes to everybody, doing more than I was being asked to do, being the vice president of whatever you need, automatically raising my hand when anything was needed. And by the way, in this time period of 5 years where I wasn't happy in HR anymore, I had an accident where I broke both of my shoulders, and I was out of work for a while. And we were all literally talking about how this was a sign from the universe that I can no longer raise my hand because my shoulders are broken, both of them. So I should just stop being a hand raiser. Unfortunately, my cycle was well ingrained in me, and I went back to work after 3 or 4 months. And I went right back to these 80 to 100 hour work weeks. So now we're in the pandemic. I talked to this coach, and I said, I actually think I might need a coach while I was talking to her. And I said, can you be my coach? And I ended up hiring her as my coach. And I said to her, the first thing I said was, my only non-negotiable is I work 80 to 100 hours a week, and that's not going to change. And she said, okay, because good coaches meet you where you are. They don't try to change you right away. And in working with a coach, I followed the easy 637 step plan. And I laugh at that because I'm guessing it was 637 steps. I still have more steps to go because we are always works in progress. But I went in, and I don't know if it was really 637 steps. It was, and a lot of them were not easy. But I made a commitment to myself that things could be different. And before I talked to my coach for the first time, I really had this idea in my head. I had this decision made in my head that I am a smart, hardworking, successful woman. I fix other people's problems for a living. HR is fixing other people's problems, operations fixing other people's problems, vice president of whatever you need is filling in for other people's problems. So that's what I did for a living. I fixed other people's problems. And I was convinced that if I could not fix my own problems, that my problems were not fixable. And I am willing to bet that a lot of you who are listening right now, and a lot of you who listen on the replay, are nodding your heads and saying, me too. Because so many of us who are high achieving professionals think that if we are fixable, we should be able to do it ourselves because we are smart, independent, resourceful, probably funny people who know how to fix problems. So if we can't fix our own problems, then we probably aren't fixable. That, my friends, is a sign that you need a coach. It is a terrific sign for you that it's time to think about getting help. And in order to get help, you have to reach out for help because most good coaches are not reaching out to you. We're inviting you to come and talk to us. And I am inviting you to come and talk to me anytime you want. Send me a DM. We'll set up a time to talk. And you can see if working with me as your coach is what you need. For me, I was like shocked every time I talked to my coach. Not because she was also smart. I mean, like I love smart people. My whole community is smart people. But because she was out clevering me, and I am a really good talker. So if I think something's not going to work, I can probably convince you it's not going to work. If I think something is going to work, I can probably convince you it's going to work. Well, I'm really good at doing that for myself too. So I went in with this 80 to 100 hours, non-negotiable. This is what my life is. This is the life I've already chosen. This is how I now live. Good luck with me, coach. And what I learned about however many steps it actually took to get where I am is that we are not meant to do everything on our own. And I sincerely thought that because I was strong and resilient and independent, and hell, I had survived a 10-year chronic illness that totally pulled me down. I had muscular issues. I had endocrine issues. I had respiratory issues. You name it, you name the system, I had some kind of issue with it. My body had gone into full autoimmune response for like 10 years. I had to go to physical therapy for 2 years to rebuild my muscles. I mean, that was a mess, and I survived it. And not only did I survive it, but at work, I totally thrived. I performed. I was asked to be involved in stuff. I worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Then I upped that when I was feeling better to 80 to 100 hours a week. I was really good at my job. And I thought it was the only thing that defined me. And I thought they couldn't live without me. A little bit of a hero complex. And not in like a high mighty kind of way, but in a like deep, heavy sense of responsibility kind of way. And working with a coach allowed me to really look at all of this in tiny bits and pieces and make decisions about what was actually true versus what was my truth. So my coach used to say to me a lot, if you say so, when I would make some sort of a blanket statement about how things are or how I am. And it always jarred me and it always stopped me in my tracks because it really made me think about like, yeah, where does that truth come from? Where does that show up everywhere around me? How am I making that true? Or is it actually true, right? There is some stuff that you come down to that may actually be true for you. And so then how do you work around that? And what I learned from her was that coaching is a slow, deliberate, powerful process. And in a short time, I went from 80 to 100 hour a week workaholic people pleaser to 60 hour a week workaholic people pleaser, because it doesn't happen all at once. I never thought I could work 60 hours a week and be happy. P.S. Now I work like 40 hours a week, maybe, and I love it. But it was hard and it wasn't fast. And my very first thing was a commitment to myself that I wouldn't look at my phone first thing in the morning for 15 minutes. I replaced my phone with a book. The second I got out of bed, a book was in my hand the second my alarm went off, a book was in my hand so that I wouldn't pick up my phone. And after a week of that, and I did a month of that, that was the only thing I really focused on. And then I was like, I really like having this time in the morning. What else can I do? And that's how it started. That's how the ball got rolling, was I realized I wanted more, less in my life. And that I wanted to be making choices and not just reacting to work and not just reacting to the job that I had chosen 20 years ago, that now I had decided, like, this is what I got to do. I picked it. I'm stuck with it. You made your bed, Lauren, go lie in it. And what I realized working with my own coach was I had choices, and I had the same choices that my clients had. So all these years I'm working with employees internally, I'm working with clients on the side. And all this time I'm telling them they have choice and deciding I don't have it for myself. So I was a good coach then. I'm a really good coach now because I've dealt with my own stuff. And so, if you are in a place in your life where you're like somewhere in the middle, right? Like it's not the early, this is fun, this is cool, I'm working too much, but it's exciting. Have that time, live in that time, love that time if that's what you're enjoying. But if you feel like you've hit a wall, if you feel like I don't want this career, but I don't know what else to do, or I love this job, but not the way I'm handling it. I hate getting up in the morning because I know there is just stress and chaos in front of me. Or I got laid off and I don't know what to do next. And I don't really want to go on the same track that I've been going on. And hey, Shelly, welcome. And you don't have to do it alone. And that is really the key, is that you were not put on this planet to do everything by yourself, even if you're awesome at a lot of things. The most successful CEOs, anybody who plays a sport well, anybody who is an excellent leader deserves to be coached by someone who can call them out on their stuff, who can ask them the curious questions, and who can really believe in them until they believe in themselves. And that's something that is like so powerful to me as a coach. My very favorite thing is working with somebody who comes in with just a tiny, tiny glimmer of belief that something can be different. Because that's where I started, was like really curiosity, like prove me wrong kind of, right? Like, I don't think I can do it, but maybe you think I can do it. And if you think I can do it, I'm willing to give it a try. And so if you're ready to start with this tiny glimmer of hope that something can be different, you want to be a better leader, or you want to have more time on your hands, or you want to completely change careers. For me, what ended up happening was not only did I decide I didn't want to be in HR anymore for the long term, but because I was cutting my hours down and I had more headspace to figure out stuff, right? Like I never had space in my head to even decide what I wanted. Because I now had this headspace and heart space, really, and energy, I had the opportunity to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm still not grown up, but I'm getting there. And I decided I really wanted to coach all the time. And so then I got the formal coaching certification and launched my own business more officially than a hobby. I've been out of the corporate world for almost a year. I love it. It's the best decision I ever made. And 3 years ago, Lauren would have been like, you would never do that. Go sit back down, get your work done, and make sure you don't F anything up, because you don't want anybody to catch you making a mistake. And do more, by the way. You're not doing enough, right? So I had to relearn how to manage self-talk. I had to be able to identify my saboteurs, my survival mechanisms, right? Those parts of us that are like, no, don't do anything dangerous. Don't take any risks. Just stay right here, do your job, keep your head down. I had to learn all of that. That was all new for me as I figured out what I wanted to be. And so this is what I do with clients, and everybody moves at a different pace, and I move at all different paces, right? Like when I'm working with my coach, there have been some times where I get stuck on the same thing session after session. And like, we can talk about it for 6, 7 sessions, and your coach will be patient with you and allow you to really process that stuff and allow you to really make choices about what you're going to do from here. How are you going to be with yourself? How do you get kind with yourself? How do you get curious? How do you decide to take risks? How do you take risks that aren't super risky so that you can sort of prove the concept of taking risks? And coaches can help you with all of that. So how do you find a coach who's right for you? Well, first of all, any coach worth anything is going to offer you a free conversation. It may or may not be a coaching session. It may be a strategy session or a discovery call or a chat. But any good coach is going to allow you to have a conversation with them before they say, like, here's my price, just sign up and then you can have time with me. There is no regulation really in the coaching industry. Anyone can decide to call themselves a coach. And so when you're looking for a coach, you want to be asking good questions. The International Coaching Federation does have a certification. They have 3 levels of the certification, and they are an accrediting body, but they don't have the right, the way like the medical board has the right to say, like, you cannot call yourself a doctor because you're not actually a physician. The International Coaching Federation doesn't have that right to say to coaches, like, you're not a coach. The challenge with finding a good coach is finding out whether they actually coach, because some coaches act as mentors, and mentors are people who are like a step or more ahead of you in their careers, and they can advise you on what to do. A coach is really opening you up to advise yourself, right? You could end up working with a consultant. And in a lot of cases, a lot of coaches do part coaching, part consulting. And that's actually what I do. Because if I am working with a client who is, let's say, a vice president, and they haven't looked for a job in 15 years, it's going to be really effective for me to coach them on what they love about their job, what they hate about it, what they want, what kind of environment they want, what kind of change they want. Are they looking for more money, less stress? Like, what, all of that kind of stuff are really deep conversations. And I'm not going to be the expert in what they want. They are. It's on me as coach to ask them the right questions. But there then will come to a time, maybe, not all of my clients change jobs, but a lot of them do, will come to a time where we have to work on their resume or interview skills. And it's not super effective for me to say, how do you think your resume should start? Because that portion needs consulting work. So if you're interviewing coaches, if you're looking for a coach for yourself, you want to be asking questions about, do you only coach? Do you consult? If I need a resume, can you help me with that? A lot of coaches do not get involved in resume writing. And I don't do solely resume writing. I only do the resumes with my coaching clients. You want to ask what their methodology is. Like, what do they believe in? What's their philosophy? What are their values? Right? Those are all great questions. You want to ask, what's it going to be like? And a lot of coaches will have sort of a framework of how things go, what the arc of the relationship is. Most coaches don't have a curriculum. Unless you're in a group coaching program where you really have to have a, session by session topic, at least, to keep everybody cohesive and together. But if you're doing one-to-one coaching, my feeling and my philosophy is, I want to know what you want, and then we'll build the coaching program around you. So I don't want you to come into your 5th session and say, like, I'm in crisis. I just had my manager just blew up at me and I don't even know what to do. And I say, like, oh no, it's core values week. We can't talk about that. I customize for everybody. And I have 100 different tools and tricks and exercises and assessments and all kinds of things that we can use as things come up. But I work with my clients to find out at the beginning what their goals are, where they are now, and what the gap is. And then we work within that gap to figure out how you want to get from one place to the other. You want to know what your coach's experience is. And you want to know that your coach has experience that feels relevant to you. So if somebody says, well, I was a systems engineer and I just was always really good at giving advice to my friends, so now I coach people on whatever. You want to question that. Well, how much experience do you have doing that? What kind of education have you gotten? What kind of training have you gotten? You don't have to be an interrogator. I'm sort of sounding like an interrogator right now. But you have the right and responsibility as the potential client to know how it all works and to know what your potential coach's philosophy is, where they've been trained, if they've been trained, what coaching, how they define coaching, right? And so that you feel comfortable that you're signing up with somebody who's going to help you for your particular situation. And if you've got questions about how to find a coach, about somebody and their experience. I mean, I won't speak to an individual and give you like a, recommendation or not recommendation. Well, I might give you a recommendation. I know some really good coaches. I'm not going to tell you not to work with somebody, but I can help you figure out what questions to ask. I also can work with you directly. I am a coach, and I coach people who are in the middle of their careers and they wake up every morning and they think, this is it. And then they say, okay, this is fine. This is fine. It's fine. I'm just going to do it this way. And fine is a trap. Fine is a trap that we get into when we just are not happy in our careers anymore, or in our lives, or our career is ruining our life, or our life is ruining our career. And I firmly believe that no matter what age you are, if you are in a career that's not making you happy, whether it's because of the actual job or the industry that you don't belong in anymore, that you've outgrown, or you've decided you like less than you would like something else, or whether it's that you love the job, you love the company, and you just feel like you're not getting it right. You're working too much or too little, or you don't speak up enough in meetings, or you speak up too much, or whatever, too much, too little, not right you feel. That's what I help with. I help people go from my whole life is work, or I spend enough time at work that, and I don't like it, that it's really impacting my life and I want better. And I help people figure out what better even means, right? We figure out together what you don't want anymore, which is hard to figure out when you're in the middle of it. Then we figure out what you do want. And then we fill in those gaps, and we do it slowly and deliberately and with compassion and kindness and a little bit of humor, because you got to laugh. You got to have some fun while you're doing this, even when the conversations get really hard. And my clients end up with higher paying jobs. They end up with jobs that they like better. They end up being able to speak up for themselves, to ask for support and help at work. They get promoted, and they are just happier. And I coach on everything. My focus is career-centered people, but relationships come up, life comes up, wellness comes up, all kinds of different topics come up, because your whole life is your whole life, and you have to be an integrated person. So I'm going to leave you there. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank everybody who has come to one or all 21 of my 21 days live. I am going to take a few days off and not go live for a few days, but then I'll be back. And I would love to hear in the comments here, or send me a private message if there are topics that you want to hear me talk about, or if there's a topic you heard me talk about, you have a question about it, or you want me to go into more depth. I am super open to different topics. And actually, some of my topics from my 21 days live came from people in the community who had a particular and individual interest, that when I talked about it, there was a lot of, I've also got that, and me too, in the chat and in private messages afterwards. So it's been such a pleasure to spend 21 days with you. I can't wait until I do the whatever my next thing is. I've got some cool stuff coming. Lauren, thank you so much. I'm proud of you too. And I look forward to continuing to build my relationships here in the LinkedIn universe, in the Facebook universe, in the YouTube universe, and on we go. Caitlin says you're a total rock star. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really, I really so appreciate all of you, and look forward to what's next. Have a terrific night. Bye.